Namaskar and good afternoon to everybody. I'm conscious of the fact that I am the last speaker, but I have the pleasant duty of giving the closing remarks of this consultation. My distinguished colleagues, Justices Prasanna Varle and Koteshwar Singh of the Supreme Court of India, Honorable Chairpersons and members of the Juvenile Justice Committees and POCSO Committees of the High Courts, Sri Rajesh Agarwal, IAS, Secretary, Ministry of Social Justice and Chief Disabilities Commissioner, Government of India, Sri Anil Malik, IAS, Secretary, Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of India, Ms. Soledad Herrero, Chief of Child Protection, UNICEF, Secretaries and officers from various ministries, Government of India and state governments, member secretaries, conveners of Juvenile Justice Committees of the High Courts, representatives of the NCPCR and State Commission for Protection of Child Rights, disability commissioners from the states, representatives of Team UNICEF in India, Mr. Gopal Mitra, UNICEF Global Head on Disability and Development, experts and panelists who have enlightened us during the 2 days, Secretary General and Registrars of the Supreme Court of India, distinguished invitees, members from the media, ladies and gentlemen. As I told you, I have the pleasant duty of delivering the closing address this afternoon after a 2-day enriching 9th round of the National Annual Stakeholders Consultation on Child Protection, which is coming to a close on a promising and reassuring note. The broad theme of our consultation is protecting the rights of children living with disability, focus on CICL and CNCP, and intersectionality of disabilities. The Nobel Prize-winning diplomat and former Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Kofi Annan, said, and I quote, "There is no trust more sacred than the one the world holds with children. There is no duty more important than ensuring that their rights are respected, that their welfare is protected, that their lives are free from fear and want, and that they can grow up in peace," unquote. Articulated in an admirable prose, his vision is undeniably shared by everyone present here today. I applaud this shared commitment and for giving force to the aforesaid words for the welfare of children living with disabilities who are stated to be more in rural India than in the urban areas. If I may dilate, our sacred trust with children is bound to be a thread of responsibility that extends to every succeeding generation. The goal of every successive round of National Annual Stakeholders Consultation has been to reimagine justice and society such that our succeeding generations inherit a view of moral and ethical values which fosters greater accessibility and encourages representation all round. The manifestation of consultative growth and goals envisioned over the last 2 days calls for unflinching commitment to realizing rights and justice for children living with disabilities. I consider it a privilege to observe that through a blend of evidence-based legal analysis and experimental sharing, participants have attempted to inch towards a community where a child is free from the invisible shackles of society and where children living with disabilities are emboldened to interact with the state. This vision is rooted in the need for a juvenile justice system that supports the pro-social development of children and youth. Rights of children living with disabilities must be given the widest possible realization, both in theory as well as in practice. The time is now to ensure that children living with disabilities are provided with the complete scope of affirmative action and positive assistance to ensure that they can be constructive citizens. This vision is in consonance with the essence of subclause 2(3) of Article 8 of the Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which provides that the state parties must undertake to adopt effective and immediate measures to promote recognition of the skills, merits, and abilities of persons with disabilities. Throughout and beyond this consultation, our focus is on strengthening the juvenile justice system by facilitating rehabilitation of children within the scope of the Act. An equally crucial area of focus has been to understand and contribute to the design of a social support structure that branches from the roots of parental support to a skilled child protection cadre. These safeguards are essential, particularly having acknowledged that indisputably there is a chasm between the ideals of the Juvenile Justice Act 2015 and their implementation. I implore all gathered here to endure towards cultivating an environment that enables children living with disabilities the space to enjoy their childhood and develop with dignity. I have no hesitation in stating that substantively diverse and truly enriching discussions have made the 9th round of our consultation a meaningful one. On that note, I am indebted to Honorable the Chief Justice of India, Dr. D.Y. Chandrachud, for setting an instructive direction for the consultation with his edifying inaugural address and releasing the handbook concerning persons with disabilities. His erudite and humanist approach to securing the best interest of children is a guiding light for all present and also underlines the spirit of this consultation. I must acknowledge the team which has prepared the handbook, and particularly to Mr. Vasu. I thank the distinguished invitees, including Honorable Minister for Women and Child Development, Srimati Annapurna Devi, Ms. Cynthia McCaffrey, Country Representative UNICEF India, Sri Rajesh Agarwal, Chief Disabilities Commissioner, and Sri Anil Malik, IAS, Secretary, Ministry of Women and Children, for their commitment to strive towards the cherished goal of accessible justice for children living with disabilities. I am in gratitude to my colleagues from the Supreme Court of India for being a part of this consultation, especially my brother Justice Pardiwala. On behalf of the Juvenile Justice Committee, Supreme Court of India, I am grateful to the Honorable Justices of the Juvenile Justice Committee, the chairpersons of both the committees, and I am grateful that their presence from all over India has been really meaningful for this session, for leading an active participation in the deliberations and directing our efforts towards reinforcing the intent and implementation of the JJ Act. I express my gratitude to judges who shared the 4 technical sessions and participated on different themes such as parental perception on children with disabilities, global instruments, human rights framework and global data on children with disabilities, family-based alternative care services and social support for children with disabilities, inclusive education and technology-enabled assistive services, intersectionality, etc. This consultation owes its success to their astute knowledge and earned expertise on topics of intergenerational importance. I express my gratitude to distinguished panelists and every member of this consultation for avidly participating in substantive and incisive deliberations. Our broadened horizons of uncertainties and vulnerabilities faced by the juvenile justice system would not have been possible without your perceptiveness and interdisciplinary knowledge sharing. Over the course of the last 2 days, there has been an unanimous admiration of India's unwavering national commitment towards the rights of persons with disabilities and especially children with disabilities. This unflinching national resolve has been evidenced in the large part of India's ratification of the UNRDP and UNCRC and the comprehensive, well-intentioned legislative framework in India. The first technical session's exposition on the development of global instruments and national legislation was an eye-opener for 2 reasons. Firstly, the discourse encapsulated the intent of global instruments and merits of India's legislative framework. Secondly, it showed that a top-down approach is unlikely to lead to meaningful outcomes unless we make concerted efforts to recognize that while disability is an omnibus term, the experiences it shadows are unique in their own right and call for focused and targeted policy making. Last year, we started collecting disaggregated data. It is now up to us to not miss the signal for the noise and provide assistance that emboldens supported decision-making, not substituted decision-making. As panelists rightly stated, the first step in that direction would be to come together across sectors and ministries. I was elated to know that Mission Vatsalaya takes steam from the convergence of 14 ministries. It is my sincere hope that the legislative intent of leveraging technology will soon result in an exclusive and dedicated 24/7 child helpline led by a dedicated sensitization and training of frontline workers exclusively for children with disabilities, not only at the Government of India level, but in each state. It was asked yesterday by a member of the audience that how could we implement rapidly these salient steps and goals we so talk of. This is one of the ways in which we could. Honorable the Chief Justice of India beautifully reflected on the directed conversation on the need to create an inclusive environment. The answer is simple. Children living with disabilities are first and foremost children. They have the right to enjoy and consume media. They have a right to safety and reside in a family environment. They have a right to develop in a family environment. Like all children do, they have right to make mistakes and grow from them. They have a right to be constructive and accountable citizens in the community. I implore to this audience to carry this message. Our parochial view that for long sought to patently brush under the carpet the success and failure of persons living with disabilities and to treat them as a fad for our self-aggrandizement must now stop. Even if a person living with disability finds themselves short of their goals, it is our responsibility to stand as a pillar of support and not use their disability as a tool for consolation to settle for less. To do so would be to view them as less than any other citizen. To borrow from Justice Rekha Palli, as she mentioned yesterday, persons with disabilities deserve to be just seen as another normal person. I would also like to thank the secretaries and other officers of different governments, departments, both state and central, such as the Department of Women and Child Development, Department of Social Welfare, Department of Education and Legal Affairs, who joined us and shared their experiences, thoughts, and ideas. I would like to thank representatives of law schools, representatives of different NGOs and civil society organizations who joined us, either as panelists or as participants. We are especially duty-bound to appreciate the resource persons whose absorbing presentations and engaging discussions took us to unexplored questions and have reinforced our spirit to take tangible steps. This round of the national consultation was unique for embracing novel perspectives from the experience of legal practitioners on the impact that representation and social support can have on children living with disabilities. I thank advocates Rahul Bajaj and Sara Sani for bringing to the fore their experiences. I would like to profusely thank Team UNICEF India for their unflinching commitment towards children and the 9th round of National Annual Stakeholders Consultation. It behoves me to acknowledge and appreciate the creativity and efforts of the UNICEF and the production team, which tirelessly worked on producing the documentary film and the mission statement for inclusion by children with disabilities titled Invisible No More. I am also grateful to the Secretary General and Registrars of the Supreme Court of India, officers and staff of the registry, and my own secretariat led by Dr. Mukesh Nasa, without whose painstaking attention to detail, immeasurable effort, and diligent planning, this consultative forum would not have transpired. I must place on record my sincere appreciation and thanks to Srimati Himani Sharat and Sri Ravi Shanti Bhushan, conveners of the Juvenile Justice Committee, Supreme Court of India, for their unparalleled efforts dedicated to planning and hosting this consultation. A special thanks to all the compeers, sign language interpreters, and volunteers who have selflessly offered their time and energy in ensuring the seamless execution of this event, and particularly ensuring that we were all on time for our sessions. Their enthusiasm, hard work and dedication have not gone unnoticed, and we are incredibly grateful for their contributions. I would also be remiss if I do not thank the members of the media, for it is they who spread awareness about the developments in child rights jurisprudence. They must be lauded for their relentless efforts on this front and for their coverage of this consultation through print, electronic and digital media. I thank each one of you for traveling from all over India and converging for this consultation. Many thanks to all those present here whom I may not have referred to in particular. I once again appeal to all to contribute in whatever manner possible towards ensuring the safety and progress of every child in the country. I exhort every one of you to take a pledge to help and assist children who are in need of care and protection or who are in conflict with law. The way ahead is not to assume that we can be the sole guardians of the experience and voices of children living with disabilities, but to provide an unconditional and accommodating platform that allows them to elevate themselves, their individual and shared experiences on an equal basis with other children. Beyond a virtue, this is also a duty spelled out in Clause 3 of Article 7 of the Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which requires parties to ensure that children with disabilities have the right to express their views freely on all matters affecting them, their views being given due weightage in accordance with their age and maturity on an equal basis with other children, and to be provided with disability and age-appropriate assistance to realize that right. Consultations such as these are supposed to be given a direction to our steps by interdisciplinary engagement and reinvigorate our commitment to the goal. Undeniably, it has to build on a desire to take transformative steps. One of the ways is that the Juvenile Justice Committee of each High Court could have a website for children and their needs and for implementation of the acts. The website could be a part of the website of the State Legal Services Authority in the state language as well as in English language. The conveners of the State Legal Services Authority must strive to implement this suggestion. As emphasized by multiple speakers in the second and third technical sessions, this intent can manifest in organizations, budgeting for accessibility, friendly information dissemination, and accessibility audits being budgeted for and taken seriously. I hope that all the High Courts will take immediate steps towards forming accessibility committees and help desks for disabled persons who come to the courts. A running concern throughout the extensive and instructive sessions was the invisibilizing effect of intersectional vulnerabilities, which may disproportionately destabilize the lives of children of a certain caste or socio-economic strata or gender living with disabilities. The impetus is on us to endeavor to design positive commitments that countervail this intersectional detriment and elevate them towards achieving professional and personal fulfillment. Before I conclude this consultation, we should make a resolve to reaffirm our commitment for the protection of children, especially children with disabilities, inter alia, in the following ways. 1. The necessary policy and legal steps be taken by every state government to ensure accessibility and inclusion of children with disabilities by removing all the barriers that hinder realization of rights of children. 2. To develop and adopt a state action plan for protection of children with disabilities, which will be reviewed and monitored jointly by the states and juvenile justice committees of the High Courts. 3. Informed by these state action plans and the national consultation, to adopt a national roadmap on advancing the protection of children with disabilities with actionable and time-bound committees. Also, all the schemes for children with disabilities must be displayed on the website of NALSA and websites of State Legal Services Authority. The data on children in juvenile justice system be streamlined on the basis of indicators that have been established by the Supreme Court by ensuring systematic data updation, their monitoring, and corrective measures be ensured. Mr. Rajesh Agarwal said that there is no correct estimation of children with disabilities in India. We all should know India is a vast country with many states. It is also known as a subcontinent. There must be, therefore, it is necessary that there must be diagnosis at the level of the Anganwadis where the children are up to 6 years. Similarly, the Right to Education Act for children with disabilities must be implemented not only in letter but also in spirit. I appeal to Mr. Anil Malik to ensure that disability pension is being extended to children with disabilities lifelong through state disability commissioners or other agencies. For the other programs which have to be implemented, I am sure the Government of India as well as the state governments could appeal for CSR funds for their different programs. Next, that our justice and child protection systems be more inclusive and accessible by every means. Efforts must be made to ensure that children with disabilities grow in a nurturing family environment. We will follow all approaches and processes to achieve this and more. The learned High Court judges must take a lead in seeing that the interpretation that they give to such kind of cases which come up before them would be a real eye-opener and a guidance for the states as well as the Government of India to ultimately implement them. Next, that the Handbook on Disabilities and the mission statement titled Invisible No More must be read by all concerned, disseminated and followed in our day-to-day lives as we engage with children with disabilities in our respective positions and capacities. I am sure the Supreme Court would ensure that the handbook is made available to all the courts in digital as well as in the hard copy. I also request Justice Maushmi Bhattacharya to share her presentation with the Juvenile Justice Committee, Supreme Court, so that we can in turn share it with all the directors of the state academies and national judicial academies as for onward transmission to judicial officers, and it would be a kind of a ready reckoner for the judicial officers to deal with various aspects of intersectionality. This will be also shared with the UNICEF for their consideration. The conclusion of this consultation gives a reinvigorated impetus to our commitment. The object of gathering at this consultation will be realized only when we all glean the spirit of deliberations and presentations hosted here and inculcate it in our daily lives and affairs and decision-making processes. Our tenacious resolve must be to allow children living with disabilities access to society that acknowledges their unique abilities and amplifies their voices with dignity and respect. On that hopeful note, I once again thank each one of you for your presence and for your participation. Thank you all again for your attention. Namaskar.